Hey folks, welcome to your Daily Dose again today. My name is Jim Merle. Today we're going to continue in our study from the book of James. So if you want to go ahead and grab your Bible, open it up to James chapter 1. We're going to begin our study today looking particularly just at verse 12 and trying to gain a little bit of knowledge, wisdom from that in order to live your daily life. So here we go. James chapter 1 and verse 12. Here's what it said. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Now, as I said on the preceding program, I think that was program 4, maybe this is 5, I don't know. But as I said on the preceding program, verse 12 is kind of a standalone verse. Now, that's not to say it doesn't relate to the context above, as well as will relate to the context to come after this, and we'll mention that on different programs as we go through this, but really it's kind of a standalone verse. And the reason that seems to be the case is because James, being a Jewish writer, primarily at the time at least, writing to Jews, he wrote after a common Jewish practice or style of writing, which was basically known as pearls on a string. Now, basically what's described there is that's when a Jewish writer, or at least their mindset and way of teaching, would go along. They would teach a fact, jump to another fact, jump to another, and then maybe go back to the first. And so basically that line of pearls on a string, teaching a different fact, a different truth, one right after another, boom, 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 then maybe coming back and jumping over to the first. Now, it might seem confusing to us in our English-speaking, modern way of speaking kind of vernacular, but it wasn't necessarily peculiar to them. It was a teaching method meant to kind of catch the attention of the hearer time and time and time again. So that's probably, and it's just a suggestion, but that is probably why verse 12 seemingly seems a little bit out of place. However, again, it does relate to the context before it and after to an extent. Now let's start out by doing what we do every day, and that is defining a few words, and after defining that, in turn discussing it and delivering it unto our heart. So to begin with, I want you to look at the word blessed. King James speak blessed, B-L-S-S-E-D. This is the same word that Jesus used during the beginning portions of the Sermon on the Mount when he used those statements over and over about saying, blessed is the man, blessed is the man, blessed is the man. That is the same word being used here. It comes from a Greek word which sounds a little bit like the word mercurios. It's where we get our English word mercurochrome. By the way, that's crazy. But anyway, the word mercurios, it is alleged, and I say alleged because I can't prove this for a fact, but it's alleged in history that there was an isle that was oftentimes referred to as the Isle of Mercurius. And what basically that isle was known for is known for being self-sufficient and self-supplying. Now, the reason that was matter, and the reason that it did matter in Jesus' day, is just like today, even in the United States, there are so many items, so many products that we need to import from other places, or else you take away those things, we may not do as well and survive or sustain ourselves on our own. Now, basically, a man is being described as blessed or completely blessed when he becomes self-sufficient, or when that one supply line that he or she has comes in complete without the need of other things. So you can see the Isle of Mercurius was said to be complete, was said to be without need of any imports from other places. They had everything they needed, self-sufficient and in place. Now, although you and I as human beings today, we certainly need not think of ourselves as being self-sufficient spiritually. Through God and through Jesus, his son who died, we are made complete and we are blessed. That is, with God and through him, we are completely self-sufficient. We're given the supply of everything we need. And that in ultimate comes out in the spiritual realm. So the first word there is blessed. The next word I want to mention with you is the word endureth. Now, the word endureth comes from another Greek word, hypermone, and I may not be saying that right. It's where we get an English word for hypodermic needle, or for going hypodermic, or underneath the skin, underneath the layer of skin. Now, again, this word endureth has the idea of being able to bear up under the pressure of, and particularly the illustration here seems to be that as we bear under the pressure of this life, as God assists us in bearing that pressure through these trials and temptations, as are mentioned here in the verse and preceding ones as well, as we do that, we get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I've been watching my teenage son. He's 13. He's gotten excited lately about working out. So he's got some weights. He goes in his room, closes the door. He pumps a little bit of iron. He comes out. And I can actually see some changes coming about in his body where he's, becoming more muscular, more lean. But I can certainly see that he's gotten a lot stronger, okay? And so when we bear up under the pressure of something, even if it's negative, even if it's a trial, a trouble, a difficulty, we can gain strength from that. So this Greek word here used that is interpreted as endureth means someone continues to bear under in order to become strong. The next word I want you to know is the word temptation. Now, we've already talked about this back when we were looking at verses 2 through 4 and how the idea of temptation here is really the idea of being tried by something or tested by something. And in this instance now, it may be more of the negative sense. As a matter of fact, in the next verses we're going to study in the next program, verses 13 and forward, where it talks about, let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted, neither tempted any man. That context, that's certainly the negative part. That's where a man looks up to God, maybe shakes his proverbial finger or fist at him and says, God, you're just tempting me. You're just trying to make me fail. You're just trying to make me fall. Well, God's not doing that. That's Satan doing that. If it is a temptation that is leaning toward or desirous of you falling or failing, that's the devil. If it's a positive trial that we go through to strengthen us so we can bear under, that's coming from God. And so God's not tempting us in that context. We'll see more about that later. But in this context here, blessed is a man who endureth or stands under those temptations, who continues to stand under those temptations. Now, the next word I want you to know here is the word tried. Again, very similar idea. It's a matter of being tried, as Peter will talk about it, as if being tried with fire, being tried with a difficult situation. He shall receive, and we talked about this word before, that is, he shall reach out and welcome into himself, receive the crown. And the Greek word for crown here is the Greek word Stephanos. It's where we get our English name, Stephen. So I don't know if you knew that. If your name's Stephen, actually your name means to be crowned. Or if you know someone with that name, their name means to be crowned. And it's the type of crown mentioned here is not a corruptible crown. It's not a crown that's going to break down and fade away. In Jesus' day and prior to that, oftentimes they would have the Isthmian. Eventually it turned into the Olympic Games, the Grecian Games and such. All of these games, they gained reward, and much of the reward they got, outwardly at least, not only, the pride of knowing they had been victorious, but they were stood upon a pedestal there, and placed upon their head was a crown or a wreath of flowers, okay? Decorative, beautiful flowers, different rare flowers and such. And it showed that they had been lifted up or exalted for something, for accomplishing something here. And so the scripture says, blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown. Now it defines what type of crown that is, the crown of life. Therefore, it is not a corruptible crown like flowers on our head. It is a crown that does not fade away, a crown that is permanent, a crown that ultimately is received in heaven. Now look what he adds to that, which the Lord hath promised. Look at the word promise there. This word promise means to tie together or to bind together something. I don't know if you experienced it, but back when I was a kid, we're talking about 1980s period anyway, at least to my knowledge, the product super glue came out. And when super glue first came out, folks, it wasn't like today where you can, if you get it between your fingers, you can pull a little bit and pop it loose, or maybe you can go down and you get some acetone or some type of glue remover and take it off. That original super glue was a bond, folks. I mean, it would pull meat to separate that. And the idea here is that the promise that God gives us is permanent, okay? It seals, it binds, it bonds, it ties together whatever he has stated. Now, we live around men. We live around people just like me and you who oftentimes give our word to something and then are not able to fulfill it. God is not that way. God's promises are sure. His promises are complete. And then the next word here, the last one we're going to look at here in the context, to them that love him. And the Greek word here for love, as a matter of fact, I'm going to just double check myself on this. The Greek word here for love particularly is the Greek word agapo, We sometimes hear it stated as agape. This is an unconditional love, okay? And you have to have that when you're in a relationship with God, because there are going to be troubles, trials, difficulties, temptations come into your life, problems that arise. And if your love for God is conditional, based on, God, if you give me good things, if you give me everything I want, I love you, and then something goes wrong, you're done. I mentioned back in the very first program, and it's really the statement I continue to make: happiness depends on happenstance, but joy depends on Jesus. And this is a joy that comes out of the love that we have, that God is caring for us, not just in our way, but more importantly, God is caring for us in His way. So that defines several of those words. Again, those words to be listed out again: blessed, endure, temptation, tried, receive, crown, promised, and love. Those are the words. Now, what does this really mean? How do we really need to discuss this? We need to discuss this in light of the whole of the text, really. And we're going to come back and tie this together on another program. Today, standing it out, a man is blessed. That is, he becomes spiritually complete when you and I endure temptation. Okay, so we are not necessarily going to have all the strength, and that's the illustration of the words. We're not going to have the strength that we need to carry ourselves through this life, or to be carried through this life, without we endure something, without we're tried. Again, like preceding verses 2 through 4, it takes a trying of our faith to develop it. It takes our faith being tested in order for it to fully become what it needs to become. And I use the same phrase again: a faith that cannot be tested cannot be trusted. Okay, so just because my life's going along hunky-dory, everything's just like I want it to be, does not mean that my faith will stand if it becomes something I don't want it to be. And that's where we have to focus. So where do we need to deliver this today? I need to take my time out in the day, and I've already taken it today. I'll take it plenty more times, I hope, but I need, and you need, to take time out of our day-to-day, look into the proverbial spiritual mirror of our lives, and ask ourselves if we're enduring temptation, if we're enduring it to the point and from the perspective that we're going to get stronger by that. Because I know it's so easy to get beat down, to get hammered down by life. It's so easy for those around us to be in the same point. And you and I need to help to deliver this message to the world, to let people know that if you will allow God, as He already desires to be on your side, to be in your corner, to be on your court, walking hand in hand with you, He will allow you to have what you need, the strength to endure. I hope this has helped you out in some way. Again, if you've not already seen the preceding programs, I'll be sure to link them up here on the screen in a moment. You can go back and kind of binge watch some of those. We're going to continue in our study in the book of James in the preceding days. So thank you so much for joining me, folks. Until next time, fight harder, friends.